They called this a knockout punch. It's not. It's a pressure gamble dressed up like a victory lap.
Right now we have a blockade. They're doing no business. I didn't like seeing boats come out if they were doing business with Iran, but if they weren't, no boats came out. So now Iran is.
That's the first thing the TV version skips. On day one, Reuters is reporting both sides could still return to talks. Oil cooled below 100, and there were no reports yet of direct U.S. shipping enforcement. And this matters. Because Hormuz is not some side street. EIA calls it the world's most important oil choke point.
The president's warning if any Iranian ships come anywhere close to our blockade, they'll be immediately eliminated. U.S. Marines are ready to board Iranian oil tankers, and CENTCOM's ready to neutralize any Iranian fast.
So the real question is not whether the rhetoric sounds tough. It's whether Fox is showing you leverage or selling you certainty before the facts are in. Notice how fast this segment moves from blockade to boarding to neutralization. That's not an accident. It compresses military force, trade pressure, and escalation risk into one clean emotional story. We moved, they folded, end of discussion.
Iran's surveillance drones flew too close to one of our destroyers, and we blew it out of the sky. And two tankers flying under false flags on their way to China were already.
And then you get the classic escalation. Seasoning, a drone shot down, tankers under false flags. Maybe every piece is real, maybe some of it is incomplete. Either way, once TV starts stacking incidents this fast, the audience stops asking the only question that matters. What does enforcement actually look like tomorrow? Reuters' own explainer is the key corrective here. The blockade targets shipping in and out of Iranian ports. It does not automatically mean every ship in the strait is stopped. That distinction matters a lot.
15 American warships are involved in the operation. The mission to free the strait got underway this weekend when two guided missile destroyers sailed straight up the gut, the USS Frank E. Peterson and the USS Michael Murphy.
Because if you miss that distinction, you turn a real pressure tactic into a fantasy of instant control. 15 warships sounds like closure. In reality, it means this choke point is important enough to militarize at scale, and that gets us to the real stakes. EIA says around a fifth of global petroleum liquids consumption moves through Hormuz. So when this lane gets squeezed, the story is not just about Iran. It's about shipping costs, refinery stress, inflation pressure, and whether your next fill-up gets uglier. That's the part cable news loves to skip. War rhetoric feels far away. Energy shocks do not.
Is it your anticipation, Mr. President, that other countries will assist in this effort to blockade Iran and those specific...
Yeah, other countries are going to also.
Which countries, sir?
We don't need other countries, frankly, but they've offered the services. We'll let it be.
This is where the story changes. If allies are offering services but still hesitating publicly, that's a tell. Friendly governments may agree Iran is the problem and still not want to be trapped inside a U.S.-led escalation ladder, and China's response is even more revealing. Beijing says the blockade goes against global interests. Translation, this is not just pressure on Tehran, it's leverage on China's energy lifeline. Reuters says Kharg Island handles about 90% of Iran's oil exports. That means the blockade story is really a money story. Cut the export artery and you're not just squeezing Iran, you're forcing China to rethink cheap supply. So if you want the sharp version, here it is. The blockade is not only about punishing Iran, it's also a signal to Beijing. Your discount barrel can become our leverage point.
We can't let a country blackmail or extort the world, because that's what they're doing. They're really blackmailing the world. We're not going to let that happen.
The Iranians told us they'd open up the strait in exchange for a ceasefire. But
that line hits because it taps a real strategic fear. If a regional power can charge tolls or impose political permission at a global choke point, the precedent does not stay in the Gulf. The next question becomes obvious. What stops the same playbook somewhere else? Reuters' shipping map shows traffic stayed far below normal, with route changes around Larik Island and vessels still stuck. So yes, the disruption is real. But no, this does not read like a clean solved problem. One tanker literally made a U-turn. That's what uncertainty looks like when actual money and actual ships are involved. This is why I would not let the source video get away with the word knockout. A knockout ends ambiguity. This story is still full of it.
I don't understand how blockading the strait is going to somehow push the Iranians into opening it.
We've enforced naval blockade.
That question is not dumb. It's actually the operational question. Blockading Iranian ports is not the same thing as instantly reopening the whole environment, clearing every mine risk, calming insurers, and restoring normal tanker behavior overnight. Fox also leans hard into the America becomes the world's emergency gas station line. Reuters was more careful. Analysts said they couldn't confirm the tanker surge, even if U.S. supply would obviously get more attention. That's the difference between commentary and messaging. Messaging says the market loves us. Commentary says, slow down, verify the claim.
I think it lasts until we can figure out what the Iranians are doing, continue to target their command and control, and if necessary, continue the kinetic tax like you intimated. Go after those bridges. Go after that.
This is the most revealing language in the whole segment. Not deterrence, not stabilization. Squeeze until they squeal. Now, the capability is real. CENTCOM says the Fifth Fleet has already integrated unmanned systems to track Iranian ships and small boats around the strait. And the Navy fact sheet makes clear what that means. Detection, classification, route finding, safer standoff operations. Useful, serious, but not instant, and definitely not risk-free. So if TV gives you sexy military tech visuals, your job is to ask what they don't prove. They prove capability. They do not prove easy control. And this is another place the source overreaches. Reuters described oil back above 100 in global stocks looking shaky. That is not a market issuing a victory certificate. That is a market pricing stress, which brings us to the smarter frame.
I think the Iranians are going to determine what happens next as the President of the United States says, we have the cards. We have the military advantage. We now have additional economic pressure that we're applying on them through the blockade that we've imposed on their oil coming out of the Straits of Hormuz. So we have a lot of cards. We have the leverage, and we're going to see what the Iranians...
That word leverage is the useful one, not victory, leverage. Leverage means pressure without guaranteed outcome. It means you've improved your position, not ended the game. Axios reported the talks ended with no deal, but not with final collapse. That's the real shape of this moment. Pressure now, bargaining still possible. And that is exactly why the knockout punch framing is too neat. If both sides are still testing terms, then the blockade is part of negotiation theater as much as military coercion.
This morning, by the right people, the appropriate people, and they want to work a deal. They would like to work a deal.
The New York Times...
Right? So now even the source material is giving away the bigger truth. If Iran wants a deal, then this isn't over. It's mid-bargain. Reuters says blocking Iranian shipments could keep roughly 2 million barrels a day off world markets. That's serious pressure. But economic pain is not the same thing as strategic closure, especially with the nuclear issue still unresolved.
I really don't want to see Bibi Netanyahu or Donald Trump politically strengthened by this war because they are two awful human beings. They're both engaged in anti-democratic projects in their own countries. They're both alleged crooks. They are terrible, terrible.
And here's the media tell. This is the part almost nobody says out loud, but everybody performs. A strategic outcome gets filtered through domestic political disgust. Not strategy first, not consequences first, politics first, and that's not unique to one columnist. It's the whole ecosystem. Fox frames pressure as certain victory. Its critics sometimes frame strategic success as morally inconvenient if the wrong people get credit. Both distort reality. So here's the grown-up read. The blockade may be effective pressure. It may raise Iran's costs. It may squeeze China. It may even improve the U.S. bargaining position. But pretending that means the story is already won is exactly how media turns live risk into political entertainment. If you want the real signals to watch next, it's three things. 1. Do allies actually join in? 2. Does enforcement become visibly harder? 3. Do oil and shipping stay stressed even with talks alive? That's the real scoreboard, not who looked toughest on cable tonight. And that's the whole point. A blockade can be serious. A blockade can be justified. A blockade can even work. But the second television starts treating serious like settled, you need to grab your wallet, your map, and your skepticism. If you want more breakdowns that separate TV theater from the underlying power game, stick around. The next phase of this story is going to be decided by enforcement, prices, and whether the people selling certainty can survive actual reality.